Hello everyone, welcome back to Rolling Solo. My name is Adam Smith, and today I'm excited to be unboxing Star Wars Outer Rim, a game designed by Corey Konieczka with Tony Fanchi. And of course, this one is published by Fantasy Flight Games. It's a game of bounty hunters, mercenaries, and smugglers for 1 to 4 players. So first and foremost, I want to let you guys know that this particular copy of the Outer Rim was provided to me by the publisher, and this is coming in advance of the release date. Again, the purpose of this and the reason I want to show you guys this in advance is because it is playable solo, as it is a cooperative game and even mentions 1 player on the box cover. And I'm really excited for this, as of course it has a Star Wars IP attached to it, which generates some excitement, but I'm really interested to see how the gameplay unfolds. For those of you that are not familiar with the channel and the structure of showcases here, we do an unboxing of the game, then we move into the setup of the game, and then I show you a playthrough of which you're part of, and we actually go through the flow of the game so you can make an informed decision as to whether or not this is a product for you. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead, we're going to flip this box over and take a look at the exterior of the box for Outer Rim. Everything you've heard about me is true, and this is a quote from Lando Calrissian, of course. The back of the box states, "In Star Wars Outer Rim, you and your friends take on the roles of bounty hunters, smugglers, and mercenaries and set out to make your mark on the galaxy. You'll travel the Outer Rim in your personal ship, hire legendary Star Wars characters to join your crew, and try to become the most famous or infamous outlaw in the galaxy. Will you make a name for yourself by hunting bounties for the Hutts, stealing for the crime syndicates, or smuggling goods past Imperial patrols? All this and more is possible as you adventure through the outskirts of the unknown galaxy. Set your coordinates, gather your crew, and make the jump to hyperspace with Star Wars Outer Rim." Now, for those of you that are always wondering what sleeves you should pick up for a particular game, Fantasy Flight always puts their sleeves and the numerical value plus what color they are down at the very bottom left of the box. You can see right here it's a green 5 for protective card sleeves, so that will help you in getting the correct sleeves for the game. There are alternate and other third-party options as well, of course. The game also has game contents listed in the back, but there's no point in going through those as you're going to see them in front of the camera as we open the box. So once you take off the box lid, you'll be greeted with a Fantasy Flight catalog. This catalog has a number of different products from Fantasy Flight that may interest you, and about half of them or more are solo playable, which is really cool, and a number of them have actually been features on the channel over the past few years. So moving on from the catalog, we jump into the Learn to Play booklet. The Learn to Play booklet is going to have everything that you need in terms of understanding the game from a high level. And this is typically how Fantasy Flight goes about their products. They give you a game overview, how to use the book, the components that you should expect to find inside the box. Of course, we'll be going over those as we move through. A nice setup. I've never found that the setup inside of Fantasy Flight games are hard to understand. Everything is in numerical order. In this particular case, it looks like on these 2 pages, setup goes from step 1 through to 7, and that may actually be it, although there could be some over here. No, that's pretty much it. So 2 pages for setup. It moves into playing the game, how to win, and then it moves into the different phases of the game. Of course, we'll talk more about those when we actually get into the playthrough, but if you're familiar with Fantasy Flight games and the layout of their rulebooks, most of this is going to be familiar territory for you. So we'll move past the rulebook at this point, but I will let you know how many pages in total it is, at least for the Learn to Play. It's a total of 16 pages, and that includes the handy quick reference on the back, which I always love because you can keep this thing right front and center as you play, and it keeps things really easy for reference. The next booklet you're going to find inside the box is the rules reference, and if you're familiar with Fantasy Flight and how they lay out their documentation, this one's going to be a little bit more wordy, but the reason for that is during gameplay you will come across particular terminology on cards you're going to want to reference to have a better understanding of. So if you need to understand more about bartering or bounties or buying cards or cargo, for instance, all that's labeled out in more detail than you'd find in the Learn to Play. The Learn to Play is really to get the game to the table quickly, and then for those situations where you need more detail, the rules reference will fill in the gaps. There is a total of about 20 pages in the rules reference. Once you get past the booklets inside of Outer Rim, you're going to find yourself 4 major punch boards to go through. We're going to give you a nice close-up view of these one at a time. So here's a nice close-up view of the first punch board of the 4 in the box. You can see here that there are a number of planets showing, and there's also these nodes or locations in between the planets that we'll be traveling through as we go through the playthrough, indicated by these yellow dots. Of course, all this will become a lot more clear when we get to the setup and the playthrough later on. In terms of the tokens, my only guess is that these potentially could be damage or health-related tokens, and of course I can see some credits here as well, which, of course, being a smuggler, you're going to run into situations where you're going to be getting paid or paying somebody else. So on the back side of this particular punch board, you can see there's not more planets, it's actually blank, and there is star pattern going on here, but again, this is going to be used likely for the setup in terms of randomizing where the planets are going to be located for your upcoming journey. So the rest of the tokens also are the same on front and back. So moving right along into the second punch board, you can see here this is not just about more planets. There's also some watermarked areas, what looks to be for the characters to potentially be on these planets. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if randomization is there. And we've got Kessel as a new planet, plus the other 2 below it. We have some more credit tokens. We've got a large amount of characters here that include individuals like Greedo, Princess Leia, Chewbacca, and a number of other characters from the Star Wars universe. Let's flip this punch board over and see what it looks like on the back side. What's interesting to note on the back side of this particular punch board is that we have different categorizations based on color, it seems. We have green, white, and yellow, as you can see going down. Plus, there's a little bit of information going on there in terms of the status bar, I believe, which is across each of these different color sets. White has 1, green 2, and yellow 3. I don't know how that's going to come into play. It might be a difficulty level of who we're associating ourselves with and the job we're particularly doing, but we'll see how that pans out when we get into gameplay, and of course, more credit tokens. Now you'll notice on punch board number 3 of 4 that the denominations of the credits have gone way up to 5,000, as you can see right here. Plus we have some more planets to add to the pile, like Nal Hutta, Tatooine, Naboo, a bunch of other individual planets to add, plus those watermarked areas for jobs would be my understanding. We have some new tokens here, which I'm not familiar with just yet. And here's a look at punch board number 3 of 4 on the reverse side. And finally we come to the very last punch board within Outer Rim. This one has denominations going up to 10,000, as well as more 5,000s and some 1,000s throughout, plus some what looks to be some boards related to the gameplay. Again, those are maybe the end cap pieces, would be my guess, on either side of the Outer Rim board, which kind of forms a half moon. That's just an assumption. We'll see how that pans out in the setup. We've also got some symbolism here, of course, with the Rebellion and Imperial factions, as well as some other factions involved, plus ships and iconic Star Wars characters on the right and bottom. So I'm going to zoom in on either of those spaces so you guys can see those up close. So here's a nice close-up shot of all of the standees for the iconic Star Wars characters that you can be as part of Star Wars Outer Rim. Now let's take a close-up look at all the different ships involved. And here's a close-up shot of all of the ships included in Star Wars Outer Rim in token form. And lastly, the reverse side of this particular punch board 4 of 4, you can see the layout of all of the tokens. Some are similar to the front side and others not so much. After the punch boards are dealt with, you now run into 2 different decks of cards. They are quite thick. There's quite a lot of cards involved there on both of those. Plus, you're going to see some really nice custom dice, as well as the classic FFG stands for the standees that we just saw. So let's go ahead and take a closer look at the dice. And here is a nice close-up of the extremely nice looking dice inside of Star Wars Outer Rim. I'm thoroughly impressed by these. They have that nice marble look to them. They're very high quality. They're all etched in, and they have 3 different icons on these dice, and they also can have blank sides as well. So there's 4 potential outcomes that can happen. Of course, the blank one doesn't sound like a good one, and I'll find out more about what each of these mean when we get into the setup and playthrough, but I am thoroughly impressed at the quality of these dice, and there are 6 in the box. And as I mentioned earlier, these are the plastic stands for the standees. There is enough for each of the iconic Star Wars characters that come in Outer Rim. You'll also find 4 plastic fame markers, which you'll be using on your player boards when playing Outer Rim. Now, I have to admit that the actual card backs for all the cards in the game are extremely nice looking. They're very, very flashy and visual. You're going to see them a mile away, and there's different ones for each of the different planets represented in the game. So I'm just going to quickly go through the backs of these cards here. As you can see them, you've got nav points for particular cards. We'll definitely flip these over so you can see them closer up in a second. But again, really happy with the artwork on the cards. They are definitely flashy, that's for sure. And they certainly speak Star Wars to me. Now, moving past all of these ones that have to do with planets, you get into these particular cards, which again, I can't speak to what these are, except for the fact that that is Boba Fett's ship. But we're going to continue moving along here, and we've got more. So this is the back of another particular card. Looks like a resource, could be fame, could be a job. Not 100% sure. And then we got some items would be my guess. So let's go ahead and flip these over and find out how right or wrong I really was. So moving into this deck of cards, look at that. It was an item indeed. So you got the DL-44 Heavy Blaster Pistol, one of Han's favorite weapons. And the credits are up top here. Again, iconography I won't speak to, and I won't go through every single card, but I'd like to give you guys a rough idea as to what this game entails in terms of the cards as we move through. So there's some artwork on the cards, but it doesn't seem to be taking up a large majority of what's going on. There's more focus on the actual iconography than the art in this particular case. And you've kind of got a sum up of the ability up top, plus the credits continually keep rising as I'm going through here. Some of them start to drop back down. But these are all things that you can pick up, I'm guessing, for not only your ship, it looks like, but also your character. So there might be a difference there. And if I take a look at the backs of the cards, they're all considered those wrench item cards would be my understanding. Now we're moving into Relic of the Past, for example. This one here has that symbol on the back. Again, these are likely to do with jobs would be my guess. I could be totally wrong. They might involve fame and credits, but there is a number of these things. The Castle Run's in there, of course, Imperial Favor, all kinds of stuff going on there. Hired Help. These still fall within the same type of cards along the way. Then we get into this card right here, which is completely different and has to do with the actual freighters or ships. So I guess that's the symbolism for all the different ships within the game, and it's going to show your cargo, it's going to show mods available, your crew, bunch of stats here, which I'm not familiar with just yet, and the cost, which is obviously quite high. Heavy duty lifter, and the artwork actually on the bottom is quite nice. This is where things get a little bit larger to represent the ship that you're actually going to be flying, which is pretty cool. That is awesome. There you go, modified YT-1300 light freighter. Beautiful. Used ship for sale. So now we're getting into what likely is... Okay, those are the planets. Yes, this makes sense. And again, jobs. And it seems that there's an upside down component to these particular cards at times. So that's kind of interesting. So I'm going to be finding out more about that. But there's a lot going on here. Pretty impressed at the the amount of text and... all the different iconography going here. This could be a pretty in-depth game just based on the cards that I'm seeing here. So, but I do like the art style. I will say that so far. And it's easy to read. Everything has a nice back. It's nice and light when there's text. Not difficult to see the wording. And for the most part, I'm going to skip through all this stuff because most of it is going to be jobs and different things that you can do within the world, going between all these planets as a smuggler or bounty hunter or anything like that. So it's just such a really, really cool idea and an area to explore in the Star Wars universe that isn't really touched on as typically games focus on, you know, Vader, Luke, and kind of following the main path. But they don't really focus on the smuggler path and Han Solo's path and Lando's path, that type of thing. And it really is cool to see that side of things kind of focused on in a Star Wars game, something that doesn't happen that often. So that is the first deck right here. So again, the backs of the cards, and I'm going to go through these just as quickly as I can anyway. And I'm not going to speak to what they exactly are because they'd just be guessing, even though I tried in the last segment there. I do know that C-3PO, don't worry, I know my Star Wars quite well, but in terms of knowing how this is all going to pan out in terms of what's on the other side of these things, this is the first time I'm seeing them as well. You've got reference cards, very, very handy. I love these, having the different stages of actions as you go through a player turn. So these are certainly handy and understand the game. And then you get into your actual character cards. So this is really cool. You got strength and tactics on the bottom, actions, your personal goal, and a couple of icons which I'm not familiar with just yet. So these are all going to correlate to the standees that we saw earlier in the unboxing. Yes, best character ever. So many cool characters here, and of course Han Solo's in there. That's really great. It's great they put some of the the most popular characters in this base game, because if they do try to expand this later, it's good that they've put some of the best characters for this theme or this particular focus inside of Star Wars in this base box, that you don't have to go after it in an expansion later on. So that's nice. And then a whole bunch of cards that seem to have different numbers, and who knows what that entails. So numbers. These could be all story related, would be my guess. So maybe as you move through the Outer Rim, you're kind of moving between the decks. This could very much have the Fallout vibe going through it. I guess that's just a guess, but I wouldn't be surprised if they brought that over. So I'm not going to go through these or really focus on them all too long, because some of this could be massive spoilers. If you want to pause the screen to read, feel free, but I am certainly not going to sit there and show every single card fully, easily readable, because I do not want don't want that to be a spoiler for you guys. But I do want to show you the types of graphic design, the actual text on the cards, how they're laying things out, so you get a good feel as to what to expect when you open up Outer Rim, or if you decide to pick it up. So we got bounties here of different individuals you're kind of going after. So cool. Vehicle parts, luxury wares, all kinds of stuff going on here. I feel like this thing is going to have great replayability throughout. It's going to be really interesting to try this through a couple times for sure. Ways to gain fame. There's something really important. So you've got personal goals, ship goals, bounties, jobs, deliver illegal cargo, win combat against patrols, level 2 and 3, and buy cards from the market decks. These are all ways to gain fame. So seems like that's something you can do a lot. AI player turn. So this is showing how the AI works within the game. That's really cool to see. Continue on through. Got more bounties to go after, and they always have the individual you're going after bounty-wise at the bottom. Greedo being a very popular individual to go after, especially if you're Han Solo. And moving on through all of these things. Just craziness. So many cards, and they're so nice. They're really, really well done. I like the design. I like what I see here so far. And there's a lot. My hand is pretty much completely full of these cards, and they're almost all falling out. There's so many. It's definitely a good fistful. So that's pretty awesome. Once all of the visible components have been removed from the inside of the box of Outer Rim, then you're going to go ahead and open up this compartment right here, where you're going to find the player boards as well as the ship sheets inside a Ziploc bag. Let's go through those now. Here is a shot of the 4 player boards that come inside Star Wars Outer Rim. What's really nice about these player boards is they're not just flat, they're actually recessed. So there are certain pockets of these player boards where recessed tokens and the trackers for fame can be actually placed inside of these player boards. So they're very, very nicely made, and there's multiple levels to them. The fame track you can see is right here, and you'll have that fame tracker, which is the white marker, which I showed earlier, which will slot into here. You've also got recessed areas here for Hutt, Syndicate, Imperial, and Rebel. And of course, you've got the actual boards themselves with places open for what I guess would likely be either your character or your ship. And here's a nice close-up view of one of the player boards. I wanted to show you the recessed areas I just talked about across here. You can see that by tilting the board, that they are double layered. And you've also got the area here for the fame track, where the peg will go in as a marker to mark your fame across the board. You've got areas around here like gear, job, bounty, all that type of stuff to keep track of all the items and things you'll accumulate throughout your journeys in the Outer Rim. And here is a representation of all the ships that come inside of Outer Rim. This one right up here, the G9 Rigger, actually has 3 additional ones on top of the one you're seeing on the shot here, but I've just removed those for now so you can see all the unique ships that are there. The rest of the ships, except for the G9 Rigger, are all represented only once for each one, and there are a total of 9 of them. And it's really nice to see blown up artwork on these particular sheets. They're not cards, although they may appear to be. They're quite big. They literally are sheets, and they're nice representations in terms of an artistic flair to really feel like you have these ships under your control, and I really, really like that. So it's going to be interesting to see how this is all implemented when it's set up, but I really, really like the fact that the ships are the focal point of the artwork, seeing as this is all about the Outer Rim. So as you can see on screen here, not all ships are designed equal. So this one here, the Archangel, has a cargo slot, cargo, mod, and 3 crew slots, whereas the Slave 1 down here has cargo, or mod times 2, and only 2 crew slots. So again, every ship is going to be very, very unique. But that is going to conclude the unboxing for Star Wars Outer Rim. I really want to thank you guys for sticking around and watching this video. This is going to conclude the unboxing. We're going to be moving into the solo setup next. I really hope you'll join me for the showcase. It's going to be an absolute blast. Love to see you there. Hear your comments, ask your questions as we go through the Outer Rim together. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, keep on rolling solo.